and to not be able to use that criticism to grow and become a better writer will be the death of an author's career. Hello creatures, welcome to Bound by Words. My name is Madie, and today we are doing a little bit of a discussion type video on why writing is not for the weak-hearted. It's not for the gentle souls, even though sometimes it sounds like it could be. So whether you are a novice writer and this is your warning, or you are a seasoned author and this is your reminder, then this is the video for you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. So first off, I am filming in a new location. I have some exciting things happening in my life, both in the editing world and with school and also with home projects. If you're curious as to where I'm sitting or what I'm doing in my office, make sure you watch to the end of the video. I'll give you guys an update. It's something that every book lover will enjoy. So what we're talking about today, and it is going to be a little more of a chatty discussion type video, and I do want you guys to be talking in the comments about it, is how writing is not for the weak-hearted. And before we can really talk about the reasons why I think this is, we have to talk about some of the reasons why people make it seem like writing is very easy. They make it seem like it's a very simple task. And the first reason is because if you put it on paper in black and white, how to write a book, it sounds kind of easy. You sit down and you write, and that's it. You either write on your word processor on your computer, or you can write by hand and a notebook with a pen. Either or, it's not an activity that requires any prior knowledge. It doesn't require any physical strength. It doesn't require any special hard to get tools. But if you were to say that to any writer at any level, as long as you have started a project, you'd kind of understand that that doesn't really capture what you're doing. So some people have an innate gift where they can write and it's beautiful, and some people write but it needs a lot of work, and no matter which one of these categories you're in, you can always learn something. So whenever people think of writing, especially non-writers, they think you just sit down and you put words on the page and that's it, you're good. They don't understand that it's a process that you have to learn, that you have to get better at, that you have to put time and energy in, that you get feedback on. A lot of people don't know how many times you should rewrite and draft a book per manuscript, and the number is different for every manuscript, but I was talking to my grandmother once, and she was just surprised at how much work goes into publishing a book, and most people are when they hear the list of things that you have to do to publish a book. So that's one of the biggest reasons why I think people chalk writing up to be an easy task, because you can do it anywhere. You can do it on any writing platform. You can do it by hand. You can write whatever you want. It's your creative prerogative to write whatever story you want. So whenever you say things like that without giving any light to the other harder parts of writing, it can be really deceptive. So that is, I think, the number one reason why people think writing is an easy task. Not only that, but this sort of ties together a little bit. You walk into a bookstore and there are thousands of books on the shelf. You Google how many books get published a day and you see the number is some outrageous sum, and then you think about all the stories that were written and posted online for free that aren't even considered published in stores, and then you just think about that number and you think, wow, it's so easy, so many people are doing it. And that ties us into the second reason why I think people generally think that writing can be an easy task, and that's because they know somebody who is writing. And I think this is horribly egotistic, but I can't say that I've never seen it happen. Normally, an acquaintance of a person writes a book, and it is mildly successful. So your friend of a friend, your uncle's cousin, I don't know, someone that you have some loose relationship to writes a book, and you just one day just hear about it. So before that, you don't know what's happening. You don't see the blood and the sweat that goes into it. But then one day you're like, here's the book that they wrote, and look, they're selling dozens and dozens of copies. Maybe they sold 200 copies. You see that, and then you say, oh, they're just a normal person like me. So of course it would be easy. If I wrote a book, I would probably just sell as many copies or more. When that's not usually the case. A lot of people sort of belittle the act of writing, oh, they did it, so I could do it pretty easily. But not a lot of people have the motivation or the persistence to actually follow through with that. They don't, and that's the thing. For all those people who say, well, I could write a book if I wanted to, if that's how you're phrasing it, then you couldn't write a book because you don't even have the willpower to commit to whether or not you want to write a book. Then how are you going to have the commitment to show up at your desk every day and write for hours? How are you going to have the commitment to struggle through tough scenes and rewrite things that you had written poorly the first time if you don't even have the mentality to commit to writing a book? So those are two of the reasons why I think people who aren't in the writing community or might not have any exposure to it think that it's easy to write a book. When as writers we know that the just write the book, the simplest sounding part, is the hardest part. And it is only the first step in a long list of things that you have to do before you publish a book and you actually put it out into the world to be successful. So what is a chatty video without coffee and apparently a cat? He just decided he was going to be in the video now, and I hope he behaves. So now we're going to talk about some reasons why writing is not for the weak-hearted. It's not, and there are so many reasons why. I have to set this down because my ice is super loud. Okay, I've recommitted to our discussion. So the number one reason why writing is not for the weak-hearted, and we talked about this a little bit just a minute ago, is the showing up. So if you want to write a book, the normal book in the YA fantasy genre, which is one of the most popular marketing genres right now, it is dominating the market. Let's be honest, most people either write or read or know of YA. The average word count for that genre is 80 to 120,000 words. Not only is that a really big range, 80, if we stick around the minimum, is a lot of words. So writing like 2,000 words a day, say, is a very difficult task to do every day, do consistently, show up, and actually have time for other things in your life, especially if you have full-time jobs, if you have kids. It's one of the reasons why NaNoWriMo is so difficult. We have NaNoWriMo every year in November. The goal is to write 50,000 words, which is less than 2,000 a day. And a lot of people fail, and it's good to try and fail. That is a good thing to do. But if we think about that, how that is a difficult number to hit, 2,000 words a day, it would still take 40 days of a nonstop writing, nonstop commitment to write the bare minimum word count for a YA novel. And if you do it in 40 days, let me know in the comments because I want to celebrate that because that is an incredibly impressive task. And we know as writers that we can have really good days where we crank out thousands of words and we feel really great about what we're writing, and usually we celebrate those things on our social media. There is a bunch of YouTube videos, especially circulating right now, of everyone trying to do 10,000 word days, and that's great, but it's not like a long-term sustainable thing. And then on the other hand, we have days where maybe we write 400 or 500 words and we don't feel great about it, but we wanted to show up and we wanted to build that habit and we wanted to write, and that's pretty normal to fluctuate like that. I think everyone has sort of like a medium number they stay around. If I'm writing consistently, then I can stay comfortably around like 1,500 words before I get really antsy and I have to get up. And you know what? I still have plenty of 400 or 500 word days, and sometimes I really have to force myself to show up. So for all of you people who have to deal with other people approaching you and saying, hey, writing's just easy, like that's just a side hobby, right? That doesn't really do much on the body and it's not strenuous. We know how difficult it is to show up and write, and the writing community recognizes that. It is not for the weak-hearted because the weak-hearted don't have the self-discipline to make yourself go through that process. And like we said a few minutes ago, that is just the bare minimum. Step one on why writing is not for the weak-hearted is the bare minimum, the just write it. Most people can't follow through with. If you have ever just typed the end on a novel-sized story, even if it is the roughest first draft in the world, then you're already doing better than 80% of people who say that they will write a book or even start one. So it's not for the weak-hearted. Of that 20% that actually type the end, I'm sure a much smaller percent actually follow through with what the book will need for publishing. And in some cases, you don't want to pursue that book for publishing, and that is totally okay too. That doesn't make it any less of an impressive, strong-hearted, strong-willed skill to have written the book. That is something to celebrate. If nobody's celebrating your first draft with you, then make sure you subscribe and mention it in the comments because I want to celebrate with you. I want to do something to recognize how difficult that task was. So the second reason why writing is not for the faint-hearted is because most people can't fight distractions. They can't. One of my favorite posts ever is a picture, and it was one author had posted this and another famous author had liked it, and I die laughing every time it crosses my dashboard. It says something along the lines of, the art of writing is getting a tea, cleaning off your desk, finding the perfect playlist, adjusting the writing, sitting down, opening your laptop, eventually getting your project open and getting focused, go to type the first sentence just to take a sip of your tea and realize that it's cold and you need fresh tea. It's just so funny to me because even professionals who are full-time writers and who are very successful understand how hard it is to stay focused. And it helps to build a habit a little bit. Lots of people talk about that. But even with that, the not answering your phone, the not looking at the TV while you're writing if it's going to distract you, a lot of people can't do that. One of the ways we writers fight this is by doing live sprints. We do like the Pomodoro technique. We have like strict schedules for ourselves in some cases. And some of the stronger people in our community can just not touch their phone, but I know I personally have to put it on silent, flip it over, put it in my desk drawer, maybe set it in your bag if I want to write without distractions. And on top of getting more work done and getting quality work done, I have this problem with my phone that I notice where if I'm in the middle of a paragraph and my phone goes off, I'm curious as to why it goes off, even if I don't answer, so I look at it. Maybe I got a text message, maybe it's just a notification for some app that I have on my phone, and I look at it and then it pulls me out of my writing for that paragraph, and whenever I look back at my writing, I had lost the next sentence. I had lost the way I was going to end the paragraph, and that takes quality out of my writing, and Flurry keeps trying to attack my blinds. So now we're on to the third, last, and the most serious reason why writing is not for the faint-hearted. Everything we've talked about so far is common. It comes up in the writing community, and it is absolutely no surprise to us. We know that people just belittle writing as an act, and that it's difficult and tiring and just strenuous. It's mentally strenuous. But this last one, I feel like not enough people hear. And that is, most people aren't good at taking criticism. If you want to be a good writer, you have to write a story. You have to evaluate it for the weak parts. You have to take apart things that you wrote, like decide which ones aren't strong enough and tear them apart and rewrite them. You have to have the strength and the willpower and the mindset to do that. But not only that, whenever you're done with that, when you go through the beta reader process, you give your work to somebody else. You hand over your pretty book baby and you have somebody tear into it. They tell you the characters they don't like, they tell you the sections that were boring, they tell you the plot points that don't make sense, they point out loopholes. And most people don't have the constitute to take that and like be okay about it. And it can be really hard sometimes as writers to hear criticism about our book. We don't always do it well. Sometimes people can just take the criticism without like feeling it, like separating themselves for the work. I know I get like a little bit emotional, but like I still have to make my book better, and part of making it better is to hear those ugly things and fixing it. Because if you hear those things in the beta reader stage, then you can fix them before the publication stage. I would rather hear something awful pointed out in my book by 10 people in the beta reader stage than read a dozen bad reviews that are keeping other people from picking up my book. And a lot of writers, especially novice writers, get really defensive whenever they hear that criticism. They say things like, well, I wrote it a certain way and you didn't understand it, or I hear your criticism, but I don't agree, so I'm not going to change it, even if 20 people pointed out the same kind of flaw in their book. And this is not only just a bad attitude to have as a writer, it's also going to be really bad for your book. So everyone goes through this phase where they think, well, what am I doing this for? Who am I writing for? And if you're a writer and you want to be published, the answer is not yourself. If I'm writing my book and I want it to be published, then I'm not writing for me. I'm writing because I enjoyed writing and I love it, and I think that if I work hard enough and I learn enough that I can produce a book that will actually sell, and that is why I write. But I'm not writing for me. I'm writing for my readers, and I'm writing for the people who I know will enjoy the book. As a writer, if I publish my book, I'm not going to be like reading it every week and loving it, and just it's just going to be something that I produce and put out in the world for the people who read to enjoy and love. And too many writers say, well, I'm writing for myself, so I don't have to change that, or I'm writing for myself, so it doesn't matter if this is wrong, or if this character is weak, or this is an old washed up trope that nobody wants to read about. And that is so weak-hearted of you to say, I'm going to put all my time and energy, I'm going to get over the most difficult thing about writing and do the writing and do the editing and put it out in the world, but to not actually be able to take criticism on it and to not be able to use that criticism to grow and become a better writer will be the death of an author's career. And yes, that's really cruel and that's really hard to hear, but we're here talking about things that aren't easy to do. It's not easy to take apart your story. It's not easy to break your characters and make horrible things happen to them so that your readers will be enticed. And sometimes it's not even easy to get them out of situations that you've created because they're suspenseful. It's not easy to get feedback. It's not easy to hear somebody talk terribly about your work. And it's also not easy to take apart things that you liked and you enjoyed writing and rewriting them. So to everybody out there that says, oh, if I had the time, I would write a book, I urge you to try to write a book. Spend a few weeks on it. It'll open your eyes to a whole new world. Make writing friends, make connections, follow through, set yourself on a strict schedule for 2 weeks, and you would be mind blown at how tiring it is to sit down and show up at your desk with your laptop and stay focused and work. And for everybody who says, well, somebody sold a successful book, so I could sell a successful book just as easily, we know you're not willing to put the work in because your statement's a big if. If you're not even willing to commit to writing a book, then you can't even get close to that successful author. For those of you who might not want to commit to writing something long-term, maybe writing a book-size thing, get a writing prompt. Write a short story, write the best short story you can, give it to 10 people and ask them to point out every single flaw they can so that you can grow as a writer. That will be the biggest lesson in humility I think anybody who is just starting out can get to. It is very intimidating not only to share your book with friends, but even to do things like hire an editor because you think, oh, this person's gonna like totally tear apart my work. So I would actually recommend newbie writers to get started on that as soon as they can. Share your things as soon as you can and as frequently as you can because other people in the writing community tend to be pretty supportive. Flurry jumped up here and knocked a whole bunch of my stuff over. But my last thing I was going to say was people in the writing community are generally the most supportive people that you can find when writing because we know how hard it is and we know that it's not a simple task to just write the book. So that was the end of the meat of the video today, but I did want to talk about my background and what's happening in my office, probably very quickly because I don't want to bore any of you guys. But before I started my YouTube channel a few months ago, I redid my entire desk area. That side of my office, I redid the decorations, I took apart my desk, I repositioned everything, I added some furniture, I got rid of some furniture, I made it the perfect writing area and also a filming studio backdrop kind of thing all in one, and it was great. I loved it. In the process of doing that, all of my extra furniture got shoved over to this side of the room and it's kind of just been floating here for a while. And about a month ago, I decided that I'm gonna build my dream bookshelf. I've been working on it here and there in between things because I've been juggling a lot in my life right now between YouTube and school and my job at Starbucks and my job copy editing, which is really just getting started. And if you're interested in copy edits, please put your information in the comments below and I will definitely get in touch with you. But I decided that along with this dream bookshelf, which is going to be massive, I'm also just going to redo this side of the room. So I got rid of my old futon and this is my new futon couch thing. The cats love it. I love it. It's super comfortable. It's the best little reading hole. And my bookshelf is going to stretch up from the floor up, not quite to the ceiling, but most of the way there on this wall. And then it's going to go all the way behind me. And I think it's going to be a perfect little space. And I want to share with you the journey along the way. So I might post some updates in my videos. If you would rather have like one video that has all the information and a before and after and stuff in it, make sure you let me know in the comments. So if you've made it this far, make sure you like this video and hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified whenever new and exciting things happen. And I will see you next Monday.